Welcome back to Team Talks. It's match week 23 and the top three are all playing at the same time on Saturday. Bring it on. Yes, the title race is hotting up nicely. We're going to discuss all three of those clubs, starting with Liverpool, who host Ipswich this weekend. But manager Arne Slot's dad wasn't impressed with the Reds' performance in the midweek win against Lille.
Okay, first of all, we check on Curtis Jones. What's the latest regarding the injury against Lille?
Yeah, he went out during half-time. So it's mostly not a good sign. And it wasn't because he will not be available for the game tomorrow. And yeah, the rest we have to wait and see how long it's going to take. I'm not expecting months, of course. Or not of course, but I'm not expecting months. But let's see if he's available for PSV or Bournemouth.
Kieran McKenna also told us in the week that he's playing through pain at the moment with his knee not fully recovered from it. What concerns do you have over that? How you're managing that day to day?
No, I think you've seen how we try to manage that. I think we skipped him twice, didn't we? Or at least in this game, Jarell played, and the Accrington Stanley game he didn't play as well. So. That is a bit maybe because he has still some pain of his knee. Don't exaggerate it, but he probably feels a bit. But it's safe for him to play. But it's more the load where you're aware of if a player is out for 5 or 6 weeks and then play him every 3 days. That's in our opinion a certain risk. So we always try to manage that. And I think he now comes to a moment where he would be able to play 3 times a week.
Ipswich was your first game in charge. I think. Back then, there wasn't the expectation that you were going to win the Premier League. I think certainly outside the club, there seems to be the expectation now that Liverpool are going to win the Premier League this season. So, what difference do you see in your side now compared to that first game against Ipswich, if any at all?
No, not a lot. But the fact was that I only worked with 13 to 14 players for 1.5 weeks back then. So there's not been said about sometimes how difficult it is to come in the middle of a season and try to work with a new team with the schedule we are having. But to be fair, it maybe felt a bit the same for me because 12, 13, 14 players came in 1.5 weeks before the start of the season, and from that moment on we only played games. So it's normal, I think, that we've improved compared to that game. Although especially the second half performance was something that was quite similar to the performances I see currently.
With that in mind, how much do you think Ipswich will be a different proposition now that they've gotten used to life in this league a little bit and taken some big points off some top teams?
Yeah, they've done, and they've been a bit unlucky sometimes in the last moments of games. I think I've said this a few times recently that second half of the season is always more difficult than the first half because some teams strengthen themselves during the winter break. Some teams, of all the teams, not all of them, but many teams work with their manager for half a season, and that normally leads to that a team becomes better. And that's definitely the situation also for Ipswich, although they've made it really difficult for us already in the first game of the season. But I think it's fair to say that they've improved during the first half year, and that is also a compliment to Kieran McKenna. That he already made it really difficult for us in the first game, but I think the few games afterwards was more difficult for them. But then at a certain point they've become a very good team that makes it difficult for every team except maybe their last game, which was an exception to the rule. And maybe that was because City was City again.
A word that keeps getting repeated again and again in comments about your performances, particularly the one against Lille, was professional. Is that a word that you like to hear when people talk about your team? Is that something that you like to judge yourself on?
It's better than that they call us amateurs. Yeah, I think you guys, not till now, it hasn't been asked yet, but the amount of question I get about Mo and how would you describe him, so it's every time you have to find a new word or say something new again, or try to come up with something new. That's a bit similar to what we are doing. So because we're doing so well, many people talk about us, and it's difficult to every time come up with something new. Now, it's been exciting. Probably it's been all kind of words has been used, and at the moment, if I listen to you, the word professional is there. I don't exactly know what that might mean. Then does this mean that we are controlling the game, or okay, yeah?
Doing everything very business-like. No errors anywhere.
Okay, yeah, I don't know if it's meant positive or negative. What I see is that we've got a lot of ball possession, that we dominate and control every single game. In every single game, we've got more chances than the other team. In every game, we deserve to win, or if we don't win, we would have deserved it. Except for one game, maybe, and I've said it many times. That was the Chelsea game, where maybe a draw would have been more fair. But in every other game we've played, I think we were the dominant team. Not because we go into a low block and kick every ball forward, because of a certain style. And yeah, it's up to anyone how you would describe that style. Professional, yeah, okay.
It's a compliment.
It's yeah, that's a good thing then.
Given Harvey Elliott has said this is his club, he wants to stay, and his recent performances, how close is he to starting, and what does he have to do?
Keep bringing performances in like he did, and keep working as hard on the training ground as he's doing as well. And I always say to the players, it's not only about you, it's also about the competition you are in. And in his situation, he's in competition with 5 very good midfielders that you know, and there are a few youngsters coming through that are very talented as well, but they are not close to playing time yet. But he's in competition with Wata, with Ryan, with Curtis, with Maka, and with and himself. So these are the midfielders we have at the moment. So he has to bring up performances like he does, and then playing time will probably increase. Increases more, yeah, will increase.
Andy?
Hi, Arne. If Kieran McKenna spoke about aiming to be better than Virgil van Dijk, how good can he become?
I think he's already very good. It's a centre back that without him even touching the ball, you already feel quite impressive, because he's so strong and tall. I think one of the things he could improve, in my opinion at least, is his play. His play with the ball, bringing the ball out from the back. I would not say he was poor in that, but he could improve. He could go to another level, and I think he works really hard to improve that. And I already see this improvement. Defensively, he's of the highest standard. I think he's fast, he's strong, he wins duels through the air, over the ground. He can cover for his teammates as well if needed. He can play 1v1 with a lot of space in his back. So defensively, there's not a lot he could or can improve. But bringing the ball out from the back, which is not his single job, it's also his teammates that he needs for that. Was something we've worked on a lot, and we still keep on working a lot. Not only with him, but with the others as well. Because from all the ball possession we have, we would like to create even more chances than we are doing now. And that starts from bringing the ball out from the back.
What can you tell us about Julio Enciso and what you want him to bring to your side?
A great opportunity for us to bring in a very, very talented player to the football club, player that we like, the attributes that he has, think he can help the team. Good opportunity for him to get another experience, a completely different experience in his young career. So hopefully it'll be a good move for both parties, and it'll be a good boost for us.
We'll talk about Ipswich in a second as they look to bounce back from the 6-0 defeat to Manchester City, of course. But Arne Slot's quote was very interesting because his dad obviously watches all the Liverpool games, but not particularly impressed with what he saw against Lille. Has his dad got a point? Have they lost that X factor that they had under Jurgen Klopp?
No, I don't think they've lost much X factor. I think they've built an even better and stronger version of what Klopp had already left behind. I think they've got an unbelievable squad. They've got players who are in really good form. They've got players like Virgil van Dijk that people a year ago thought, are we ever going to see him at his peak again? And he's levelled up. And I do think, that is great for Arne Slot to work with. But obviously, these players can't be 100 at that level all the time. There are going to be moments, and we've already seen that this season in that defeat to Nottingham Forest, in the draw with Nottingham Forest, where you can't have perfection every game. But I think the ability that Liverpool have, the depth, and the fact that even when they've had injuries, it hasn't impacted the team that much. I just think what Slot has done is taken a very good team, nurtured it, added a few more bits and pieces, and they've levelled up again. And I think across the season, you see that in how they play.
Is that the result of just having more control over games?
Not necessarily. I think that sort of idea is one which we saw right at the start of the season, but each game essentially is different. I think you look at the Brentford game where they scored 2 late goals, but they also had, was it nearly 40 shots in the game?
Yeah.
Like 40 shots in the game doesn't mean you're just passing the ball sideways and trying to control things. That's you really going out of side. And not many teams will ever get the chance to have that many shots in a game, let alone 2 games combined, you see. So I don't think the control is necessarily as big a thing, because teams that would go and play against them, maybe they try and play into a weakness of the system that they believe that Liverpool are going to do. But they can move it around the back, they can hit diagonal balls, you can see them be full speed with Salah, with Luis Diaz, with Gakpo, runners from midfield, the fullbacks bombing forward. So they've got lots of different ways to try and get wins. And I think I echo what Flo was saying really as well, in the fact that it hasn't been perfect all the time. But as is the case with Lille, well, they won the game. And where does that leave them? Top of the Champions League group.
Yeah, already through, by the way.
That's what
to
I mean.
The next phase.
Exactly. Or like, say, domestically, they didn't look great in this game. Well, how did the game go? Well,
I also think there's I think what's been tough for Liverpool is that there aren't teams aren't afraid to play them. Think about that Brentford game. It was so open. Any team could have scored in those first 80 minutes, and I couldn't believe it was 0-0 for so long. So unlike City a year ago and City under Pep Guardiola, where everyone is terrified of them up until now, sorry, Nedum. I think what's really interesting about this Liverpool side is so many teams are happy to take it to them. Even that opening game of the season against Ipswich, where for the first 20 minutes, Ipswich, everyone thought, OK, you're holding your own here. And I do think that actually is a sign for me of a very good team that can withstand a lot of pressure but still win out in games, rather than those bigger teams that turn up and they just control the entire 90 minutes and teams are terrified of them.
Just a word for Darwin Nunez, who we saw scoring those 2 goals in injury time against Brentford, just when hope was fading, for what he can do, having kind of burst on the scene. He's now seen as that kind of chaos creator. But suddenly he's just reminded us, hasn't he, of his ability. Yeah,
for sure. When Arne Slot's putting him on the field, he's not putting him on there just to run channel, because he's putting him on because he believes he can score in a big moment, and he managed to do that. And when you see the relief that he has after he scores the first and then the second, those are big moments for players. And unfortunately, as the defender, I never really had that joy of having those big moments and saying, oh, I'm the hero. But the fact is, he probably needed that. His belief at times is something that a lot of us believe he probably doesn't have as much as others. But when he's out there, he has an impact on the game throughout. And when his finishing's there, like as a defender, with minutes to go, you don't want to see Darwin Nunez coming onto the field. And when there's going to be the goal-scoring element as well, it makes it even harder for you.
They're taking on Ipswich, who've made another loan signing. So we've got Julio Enciso, who's their incredibly talented teenager from Brighton. He scored a great goal against City, did he not?
Please carry on, yeah. Anyone else to talk about?
You feel like you're under fire here, don't you?
That's fine.
But this is one he won't forget in a hurry.
Yeah, I remember that one, clear as day as well. It was just after City had already won the league.
It was, last game of the season?
Yeah, that's right, yeah. So, dead rubber, it's fine. But
still a good goal.
Yeah, it's a great finish. Right. It's a great finish, and somebody with that sort of quality getting a chance to go to Ipswich is a big deal for Ipswich. And you can see that, they want to try and stay up, but they're trying to do it through attack, not just in defence. Because in my mind, and maybe this is where I'm wrong at times, it's good to have a good defensive record, but you need to be able to have a threat to win games of football.
Yeah. Because
you're not going to be drawing your way to stay in this division. You have to find ways to score. And that's why Liam Delap has been such a big deal for them this season. That's why Sammy Smodic, when he's scoring, that's a big deal for them. And now Enciso feeding them a bit more, maybe they'll have a chance.
They've been by far the most proactive of any of those sides down at the wrong end of the table. Calvin Phillips is there on loan, Ben Godfrey, even Jayden Philogene for 20 million for a team like Ipswich in January is quite a statement. At Anfield, knowing you've just been thumped 6-0 by Manchester City, it doesn't get any easier, does it?
It doesn't, but I do agree with Nedum. I think they're going about things the right way with their recruitment, with their approach to games. I mean, if you think about Burnley last season and a lot of the criticism that Vincent Kompany had around them with not being adaptable, not having a plan B and being naive in games and wanting to stick to your principles, I think a lot of people could apply the same thing to Ipswich because they are being very stubborn in their principles. But the reality is they are matching up with a lot of big teams and they are really staying in games. They've had some positive late results and some negative late moments where they've lost games late on. So it swings both ways for them. But I do think I'm optimistic. Unfortunately, I think they still might get relegated, but I think, and this isn't very helpful for Ipswich fans, they will go down fighting and they will go down giving it everything rather than sort of giving up. I think they will go down and feel like, OK, we played our way and maybe we came up short, but we had a lot of moments where we were competing with the top teams.
We talked, you've mentioned Liverpool, about going in potentially to there and how well Manchester United played against Liverpool. But when we're looking at a team who play with intensity and who play with that work rate that maybe was lacking Manchester United performance, we saw all of that for Liverpool against Brentford. And look, I know there were 35 shots before they got the 2 goals. They weren't necessarily 35 good shots, but still their XG was, some metrics had it around about 4, but in terms 4 or 5 in terms of the potential goals that they were scoring. So although they didn't create loads of great chances, there was enough for them in that to win that game.
Yeah, but what was good about that game is that when you're going for the league like that, you'll get a game where you probably need the bench. I think the last 5 goals for Liverpool have come from the bench, and 3 of those as well, Gaffer, has been people who have assisted from the bench. Yeah. So they've already set up for, you know what, if a team... When
you see this, these kind of wins feel good, don't they?
Yeah, they do. Because what's happening is that you put the team out and then they've done well. They've done their job, they've defended brilliantly, missed chances maybe, but then you are able to get somebody like Nunez off the bench to go and make a difference. That's what you're hoping. I'm sure that Liverpool would have said, OK, we'll take a point because we haven't lost. But if you've got somebody who could come off the bench and make a difference and get you the 3 points, that's championship. That's how you win the league. That's what happens.
Jota did it at Forest. Jota with a header in
22 seconds back.
You know, and that's what a great squad does. I've always said it to my subs over the years, even before the rugby scenario, but what's the most important team? The one that starts or the one that finishes?
One that finishes.
And I used to say it to the subs for a reason, just to get in their mind, because in some ways, once the first half's gone, that's history. You can't think about it. It's the future. And then the last 20 minutes of games, there's a lot of goals being scored. Now the game goes on for 97 minutes, or normally, or whatever, average. That's when there's a lot of key moments in matches for any team, let alone a team that's got the confidence and the ability to bring players off the bench and make a difference, which Liverpool are doing.
It's funny because I know we're going to mention Arsenal, but it's listening to Arteta's quote about what Liverpool are capable of doing, who they can bring off the bench, what they can do, and him saying, same as I think as Amarim saying to Ineos, you know, it's a message to the board. I am the absolute opposite of what Liverpool can do. Yeah. And that's worrying.
Nobody has a front six like the Liverpool one.
No.
All the options.
Unbelievable.
Yes, and I think that's true in terms of numbers. But would Arsenal, for example, take a Nunez, maybe a Jota? You could see would be
Nunez
useful.
Is the one.
But you look at or a Gakpo or a Luis Diaz. Would they necessarily be Arsenal's kind of players?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think they might not start for every big team in the Premier League, but as to be in your squad, to have that depth, to be able to bring on a Luis Diaz. Darwin is a little bit slightly different to the others.
But like when he's hit, it's 3 points.
Yeah. For this game, perfect. And to be fair, we said before...
Have we given up trying to work out why Darwin Nunez is the way he is? Are we just kind of accepting him
I think
as he is now?
You just have to accept him as he is.
Whatever team he would go in, he's going to be a bit like that, whatever.
I don't think... You think Gaffer... I think it's... If he goes for 40 million, 35 million, I don't think he gets the same noise. But it's because he's gone for as much as he's gone for. People are constantly on his case.
Yeah, there's a bit of that.
That's all. That's what I think.
It's a tough team to start in. Because although I thought Slot should have started Darwin in this game against a defence like the Brentford team, same at Forest, I thought he made a mistake by starting Luis Diaz, who's one is not a 9, so not a traditional 9, and 2 needs the space to use his space and the runs in behind, which against Forest and Brentford they would never be there. So I thought Darwin not starting was a bit of a mistake from Slot. It was rectified by Jota getting the equaliser in the Forest game, and then Darwin coming on later to get that win. But it's all the different profiles. You can have 6 forwards, but if you look at Salah and Jota and Diaz and Gakpo and Darwin, plus even a Harvey Elliott, they're all so different. And that's the brilliance of it, I think.
He just looks like a player when he starts. When he starts in a team, he's a different player to when he comes in on the bench. You know, when the chains are off a little bit, if you're losing or you need, they weren't under immense pressure there against.
It is a different pressure.
It's a different pressure. It's a different.
As a striker,
the lad at Villa, Duran.
Duran,
He looks a fantastic player, but when I've seen him start, he's not the same player as coming on from the bench. And sometimes you just have these players that have an impact coming from. They can't play with the pressure on their shoulders at the beginning of the game.
And when the defenders are a little bit fresher and a little bit more switched on, sometimes that
mentally
makes a
switch
difference.
off. Yeah.